Hello everyone and welcome to iOpenTCGs, the channel where I sometimes open TCGs. Today we are back in PowerPoint mode and we are doing a product review for the new Star Wars Unlimited Legends of the Force Carbonite Boxes. Now if you are new here, this review is about Carbonite Boxes as a product. It is not a set review. There are many other YouTubers who talk about the playability of the set and things like that. But on this channel, we focus more on talking about the products themselves. So we have a brand new set number 5, Legends of the Force. And these Carbonite boxes feature 0 meaningful changes in the product design versus the last set, Jump to Lightspeed. Prestige cards are still the only unique treatment that you can get in Carbonites, and you are still supposed to get 1 prestige card per pack. More on that later. While this is somewhat expected, given that this set was already locked down when Jump to Lightspeed was released, it is disappointing that FFG didn't anticipate and fix any potential product issues worth addressing once Jump was finalized. However, despite the product design being effectively the exact same as before, that doesn't mean that nothing has changed. The first and biggest structural change to the product is that this set features an increased number of prestige cards in the set. In this set, there are 46 prestige cards versus 36 in Jump to Lightspeed. This means that the chance to open a specific prestige card is around 22% lower in this set versus the last set. So when you open your Carbonite pack, it would be 22% harder to hit a Darth Vader prestige card versus, say, a Devastator prestige card in the last set. Now, the good thing for this is that the good prestige cards will be harder to get and, in theory, worth more money. And again, we'll talk more about that later on in the review. But the con is that because there are 10 more prestige cards, more of them means that there are just more that are undesirable and or feel bad to get. Now, this isn't quite the exact same thing as when FFG decided to increase the number of legendaries and increase the hit rate, which they did last set. This time, they increased the number of prestiges, which naturally decreased the hit rate. But unfortunately, I think FFG has totally missed the plot here. The main issue with the Jump to Lightspeed legendary changes was that it didn't do anything to actually fix the real issue, which was bad legendaries that nobody wanted to pull. It was a change kind of for no reason. Instead of focusing and creating better legendaries, they just added more that barely see play and still aren't worth very much money. The same thing is happening here again. Even though a specific prestige is 22% harder to hit this time around, there are just too many of them, and most of them are just not wanted. We'll talk more specifics in the value section. But this is the main problem with choosing prestige cards by theme. All ships in the last set, all Force users in this set, all this, all that. Instead of just choosing awesome cards that people will want, doing it by theme means that there's always prestige cards that aren't the most desirable. There's always going to be some ships that the majority of people aren't going to know or care about, or a bunch of Force users that the majority of people are not going to care about, especially when there's so many of them. It is one of the biggest, completely unforced errors in the product design to make prestige cards by theme. Because if it wasn't by theme, you could have done cooler stuff. For example, you could have made some of the sickest lightsaber, cold foil, ultra shiny prestige cards in this set. You could have done prestige cards for some iconic event cards in the set. I've always talked about the event cards. There are so many iconic moments in those, callbacks to the movies, shows, all of that stuff in the event cards. You could make awesome prestige versions of those. You could do prestige bases or showcase bases. But most importantly, you could do prestige cards for the powerful cards that people will want. Doesn't matter if they're commons, uncommons, rares, legendaries. Just take what you think are the best cards in the set, give them a desirable alt art, and make them awesome. But no. This will not happen because they have decided to do prestige cards by theme, and until they release even more treatments, this will always happen. It is unfortunately a fundamental problem here. And double unfortunately, even though they increased the number of prestige cards by 10, again from 36 to 46, they did not change the out of 250 serialization. So that means that there are an extra 2,500 more serialized cards in this set. Now, this does mean that the chance to hit a serialized card has been increased by 27.8%, assuming the same number of boxes, which is actually very significant. So, for example, for the non-math people, we don't know the exact number of boxes, but for example, if the Jump to Lightspeed serialized hit rate was 1 out of every 6 boxes, for Legends of the Force, that would be 1 out of every 4.7 boxes, right? And if the JTL serialized hit rate was 1 out of 8 boxes, which is what I think they were, the new hit rate would be 1 out of every 6.26 boxes. So going from 8 boxes to 6 boxes is a fairly significant jump. Now, I do want to mention the same criticism I've said over and over again in these videos, which is 250 of each serialized card is way too many cards for the current collector demand. The thematic nature of the prestige card also leads to too many unplayable or undesirable cards that are serialized. And in an ideal world, if you're going to do serialized cards, right? You can make them a lot more selective, a lot more desirable. They could be out of 100, 50, 10. You can have an out of 10 ultra hard to get Darth Vader unit or Luke Skywalker unit, right? I don't know if that's the best thing to do right now, but what I'm saying is if you're going to do serialized cards, do serialized cards. But at the very least, when they upped the prestige cards from 36 to 46, it would have been the perfect time to change the out of 250 number. If they made it out of 200, it would have kept the overall serialized number around the same, but it could have been 150, it could have been 100. It was their chance to make a change, and they didn't do it. Overall, I would say that I am very disappointed that there were no product improvements in these boxes. The only changes made were unnecessary and unhelpful. Now, I will save my even harsher words of criticism for the next set, as I do understand that this set was probably locked down before Jump to Lightspeed was released and feedback was given, but I do want to reiterate one last time that there is so much more that they can do with Carbonites to make a better product. I am disappointed in what they did. I am even more disappointed with what they didn't try. Speaking of disappointments, let's talk about the art. Now, the art for Jump to Lightspeed prestige cards was a great step in the right direction. Unfortunately, it was 2 step forwards in Jump to Lightspeed and 1 massive step back in Legends of the Force. Now, I'll start with the positive. The character art is largely great. One of my biggest worries for this set, which I talked about in my previous videos, was that they would showcaseify all the prestige cards, right? I was worried because they have problems drawing faces often. And I'm happy to say, in general, that the character art is good. It's not perfect. There are far too many ugly fingers randomly in this set, but generally, on the whole, I'm very, very pleased with the character art. Now, the biggest issue is not the art of the subject matter. It's the background or lack thereof. It's the type of the foiling and the way the foiling looks. All of this is what combines to make good art in the TCG. So for me personally, when I say that Star Wars is lacking in the art department, I do sometimes mean the ugly faces of the cards, but I also think it's the treatments, right? It's also the backgrounds and the foiling. There are other aspects to the art. The biggest change from Jump to Lightspeed is that not all prestige cards are the same. 27 of the 46 prestige cards feature a plain background. Yes, these plain backgrounds have these little waves in there, and yes, I know they technically connect to each other so that you can make this binder page of 9, but it is the laziest, most lackluster way to connect quote-unquote cards, all right? They are, for all intents and purposes, a blank background. Now, this is a total guess. It's not been confirmed by anybody. This is just my personal opinion, but I think it's extremely clear what happened here. Now, either they spent all of their time focused on making sure that the Jump to Lightspeed ships were top-notch, they just didn't have the time to do it on this set, or the inspiration for these types of prestige cards are Topps Chrome cards, the billion-dollar industry that makes the most boring collectible cards of all time. This is also the exact thing an out-of-touch executive might suggest. Like, hey, look, Topps makes a lot of money with their trading cards. Do that. Copy that. You see those Topps cards? Do that. Do that. You already listened to us when we said copy Magic collector boxes. It is the most out of touch CEO thing to say. Now, never mind, you could have copied these Japanese TCGs that are on the top of their game when it comes to alt arts, or games like Flesh and Blood that have some of the most beautiful cards on the market right now, or copy Sorcery's painterly art pieces. No. Let's go look at Topps cards, where it's just a movie still with a chrome background in the back. Oh, and by the way, none of the games that I mentioned make you pay $25 a pack, and they all still seem to have insanely beautiful hits. And yes, now you know I didn't mention Magic in that list, but I'll talk more about that later. The prestige cards that feature the connecting background, so not the Topps Chrome ones, but the ones that feature kind of a unique background, these prestige cards, they are better. But they are only better in relation to the Topps Chrome ones. I still think more than half of them are still very lackluster. Cards like the Darth Malak card, cards like the Yoda card, those should have been the baseline of art, not the top end of the art. That is where they should have started with the art and gotten better after that. I also think that FFG learned the wrong lesson when it came to connecting art in the last set. The connecting art isn't the thing that made the ship prestiges cool and jump to light speed. The connecting part definitely gave it a plus 10 coolness buff, but the baseline card should stand alone. But when you have prestige cards with quote-unquote backgrounds like the Oppo Theatel ones, or the Adi Sin Deepa ones, or even the Anakin Obi-Wan Qui-Gon Jinn ones, they're extremely boring. And the biggest disappointment of all is the blatant, arguably disrespectful lack of understanding that FFG has when it comes to chase hits. You're telling me that Darth Vader, Luke Skywalker, and Leia have boring Topps Chrome backgrounds? You have some of the most popular characters of all time and you don't even try? The absolute worst offender is Darth Vader. Darth Vader is the chase legendary of the set, arguably the most famous character in all of Star Wars, and he gets a plain background? He should have the coolest art you've ever seen. It should have had insane foiling, insane dynamics, insane everything. It's Darth Vader prestige. It should make Star Wars fans shit a brick when they see it and make them want it. No, make them need it. But no, he doesn't even get a background. And now I know what defenders are going to say. That card looks great. It's worth a lot. It may look great right now in comparison to some of the other stuff. Like, I think the Darth Vader art looks great, but it is nothing. It is a minuscule fraction of how cool a card could look. Start expecting more from a TCG, for the love of God, okay? These packs, MSRP for $25. Getting more collector eyes on the game is the literal reason for this product to exist. It is not here to just milk money out of Star Wars fans, which is kind of what it's become. And now this brings me to the Galactic Championship cards. Now, if you don't know, the Galactic Championships is happening in, I think, a week at the point of recording here. It is the big World's Championship tournament. And rightly so, FFG wants to incentivize people to go there. So please don't misunderstand me for what I'm about to say, okay? I love that FFG is taking organized play seriously. I love that they are giving awesome looking cards away to the people who get to go and the people that get to play. But Carbonite boxes should come first. They are $300 MSRP. They are the way that most collectors interface with your product. And remember, most games don't do collector boxes, okay? It is not normal to have $300 collector boxes, so they should be filled with value and fun stuff. With the level of art that the prestige cards have in this set, it is an absolute travesty that they can produce cards like this for the Galactic Championship, but they'll put Topps Chrome cards in the $300 boxes. Now again, in a world where Carbonite boxes are filled with equal level cards or more, there is no issue here with the Galactic Championship cards, right? Like, if Carbonite boxes has some good shit in it, it's fine to have other stuff in the Galactic Championship. The problem is that the level is not only so different, but the Carbonite boxes barely have anything as it is. When I saw these Galactic Championship cards, I could not believe people were not angry about this. It really seems like they took some of the best cards out from the Carbonites and put them in the Galactic Championship cards. To a lesser extent, this also applies to the convention exclusives, right? The convention exclusives are cool. They look good. It's fun formatting. FFG needs to prioritize getting way more stuff, way more hits, way more value into the Carbonite boxes before they even do some of that stuff. And the fact that they don't do it shows you their priorities. Next, let's talk about the changes to the Tier 2 and 3 foiling. Now, in Jump to Lightspeed, the Tier 2 foiling was showcase foiling, the DNA strand. Much like my problem with regular showcases, my biggest gripe with those is that you can't really see the foiling for around half the cards because the background is just too dark. And because the ships were often in space, the foiling, for me personally, was often very lackluster. Now in Legends of the Force, they changed the Tier 2 foiling. It is now a standard rainbow foiling. It's slightly different for the Topps Chrome cards versus the ones with the backgrounds, but honestly, there really isn't much to say about the foiling. It's pretty generic, pretty boring. Maybe slightly more boring than Jump to Lightspeed, because at least when the background was really light, you could really see the DNA strands in Jump to Lightspeed, and that was really nice. Now, don't forget, you only get around 4 Tier 2s on average in a $300 box. This is the second highest version of the card. Ostensibly, it's the highest one other than Serialized, which most people are not going to be put in their decks. So this is kind of the mini whale highest version. And there really doesn't seem to be much effort into that at all. On the one good side, they did change serialized cards by adding a unique foiling to those. So for the Topps Chrome cards, they added this wavy foiling that's kind of very trippy. It does kind of match the background that they used, and it does make the card stand out a lot more. For the backgrounded cards, they added this golden circle trim that also makes them stand out more. They still have the kind of embossed layer on the character themselves. I do like this change. It does give serialized cards a lot more oomph, which is good. But unfortunately, I think it came at the cost of Tier 2 cards. In an ideal world, that serialized treatment should be the Tier 2 treatment. And the serialized treatment needs to be above that. Right? You really want to make the Tier 2s really stand out because in theory, those cards should make up a significant portion of the value in a Carbonite box. And unfortunately, which we'll talk about later on in this review, there really is not that much value in Tier 2s. And I personally think it's because the treatment really sucks. So while I'm happy that serialized cards are a little bit better, but I do think it comes with a severe downgrade in the prestige art, and that's very, very disappointing to see. Next, let's talk about the prestige art quality. Now, in Legends of the Force, it does seem that the overall quality of cards is much better. That's a good thing. In Jump to Lightspeed, there were several issues with gigantic print lines and nicks and dings and foiling errors and off-centeredness and miscuts. We saw so many prestige cards come out of the pack damaged in Jump to Lightspeed. In this set, it seems to be a lot better. My only real issue with quality here is that many of the Tier 2 cards that come out of the pack are already pringled. And it's usually the Topps Chrome Prestige cards that are pringled, but it is sometimes the backgrounded ones as well. That should absolutely not happen. Foils in this game are already bad enough that most people dislike them and most people won't buy because it might disqualify them in a tournament. This wasn't a problem at all with Jump to Lightspeed cards. I think it might be because the DNA strand, the showcase foiling, however way they put that treatment on, I think it makes the cards extremely flat, which was great. But the Tier 2 cards in Legends of the Force feel thinner. They're very pringly, and it is definitely a step back. Now, this is a small problem in this grand scheme of things, so I won't harp too much about it. But there is, however, one big problem that I haven't personally seen, which is Carbonite packs missing prestige cards. There have been many reports of people opening a pack and not getting a prestige card in them. Oftentimes when you open a box, they're missing 4, 5, 6 prestige cards in total. Now, it does not seem to be a widespread issue, but the fact that it's happening at all really sucks, right? Just like it sucks when you open a pack and your showcase is cut in half, right? That sucks. Plus, there really isn't even anything FFG can do for the people affected, as most people don't videotape their openings. Now, I have heard that if you do message FFG, you do tell them, you have the serial number of the pack and other things like that that might take care of you, which is great. I really hope this sort of thing doesn't happen again. But really, I want to take a tangent just to talk about the response from a certain subset of the community, okay? When these reports started popping up, and still to this day, I still see people writing these comments, the people who automatically refuse to believe that anybody else could have a different experience to their own experience, or the people, even after video evidence were provided, people that still didn't want to believe that it was an issue, people who are willfully or stupidly trying to push the idea that because the packs say no specific card rarity is guaranteed to exist within an individual box pack or case, that means a prestige card, it was not meant to be in a Carbonite pack? No. The people who will bend over backwards to defend the company that doesn't give a fuck about you, okay? You are the exact type of person and fan that lets FFG get away with what they do, all right? And you suck. Anyways, let's now talk about value. Now, value is the hardest thing to judge, especially 5 days into a set's release. But there are some signs and things that we can look at. In Jump to Lightspeed, nobody was really sure what the value of prestige cards would be when it first came out. Obviously, it was the first time. The prices started very high, demand started high, but it has free fallen since. Legends of the Forest has started with a very, very different feeling. Singles have started at a more reasonable price, and it is anecdotal, but from my personal sales, talking to people, the overall desire for prestige cards has lowered significantly because a lot of people bought Jump to Lightspeed cards, saw everything go down, saw the lackluster art of this set, and they're like, why would I even buy any of this stuff now? I'll just wait. When Jump to Lightspeed launched, according to my last product review video, which was released 5 days after the set release, the average prestige tier 1 for Jump to Lightspeed was $6.77 at the time. The average tier 2 was $12.30, and the average showcase price was $118.58. And again, that was 5 days after the official set release. Now, at the time of recording this script right now, we are 6 days after set release. And for Legends of the Forest, right now, the average prestige tier 1 is $6.85. The average tier 2 is $10.08. And the average showcase is $111.85. Now, this looks very familiar. The prices 6 days after set release for this set are very similar to the prices 5 days after the last set. But let's look at what Jump to Lightspeed looks like now, because 4 months later, Jump to Lightspeed has dropped significantly. The average tier 1 price is now $5.39, down 20%. But the biggest hits come in the tier 2. The average tier 2 price is $7.84. And the average showcase price has gone down to $72.45. So that's a drop of around 36 and 39% respectively. Now, let's look at the legendaries as well. While the legendaries are not directly part of this product, they do make up a big chunk of the value of the product. So 5 days after release for Jump to Lightspeed, regular legendaries, $6.69. Foils are $5.65, hyper legendaries are $7.80, and hyper foil legendaries are $10.09. And right now, 6 days after release for Legends of the Force, the prices look very similar again. But now let's look at Jump to Lightspeed prices 4 months later, and every single treatment has dropped 25 to 38%. Now, these are two different sets, right? The meta is different. The power level of the sets do really matter because this is a player-driven game, but it is interesting to kind of see history repeat itself here. So my guess is when the next set comes out, Legends of the Force prices will also probably drop another 25 to 35%. Once again, reinforcing the idea of why buy Carbonites, right? Now, it is a normal thing. It is normal that cards start really expensive, right, during pre-release, and then they go down. That's normal. That also means in a normal TCG that once supply restricts itself, suddenly cards might go back up again. And one of the main problems with Star Wars Unlimited is that there is really no supply block ever. It's never going to happen with the regular booster boxes. You thought maybe it would happen with Carbonites, but so far, it has not. Now let's go back to the idea that a specific prestige card is 22% harder to hit in this set. Okay? With 36 prestige cards in the last set and 46 in this one, you need to open an additional 10 packs to get a specific card. That's $250 worth of MSRP extra money to hit a specific legendary. So this extra value should show up in the prestige cards, right? At the time of writing this script, again, 6 days after release, there are already, right now, 32 prestige tier 1 cards worth $6 or less. That is around 70%. 70% of the tier 1s are $6 or less. 23 or 50% of the tier 2s, are already $6 or less. It is 6 days after release, and already the majority of the exclusive variants in the $300 box are worth $6 or less. As a positive, I will say that it does seem that this set was expected to be very top heavy, right? Darth Vader's a very good card. Anakin's a good card. Yoda. We will find out in a month or so, and I'll probably make a follow-up video. But right now, from everything that I've just yapped at you, there really is no meaningful difference between last set and this set, at least not so far. If anything, it actually makes the opening experience worse because there are more bad prestige cards, and so the chance of you hitting undesirable ones goes up. But let's look closer at one of the desirable cards, because one of the things mentioned in many of my videos is how having 7 versions of the same card is, again, a structurally dumb thing. So let's look at the best card in the set, Darth Vader, Twilight of the Apprentice. Now again, this is true for right now. It might be different when you watch this video, but right now, a regular version of Darth Vader is $30. The foil is $22, the hyper is $35, the hyper foil is somehow cheaper at $30, the prestige tier 1 is $35, and the prestige foil is $52. So that means of these 6 versions, 4 of them are within just a few dollars, and one of them, the prestige tier 1, is in a very, very exclusive, hard to get variant in a $25 pack, okay? That is how little the versions of the cards matter nowadays in a product where the version is supposed to matter. Now keep in mind that this is the best example in the set. It is arguably the most desired card. So let's look at some of the other legendaries that are not as desirable. Let's look at Qui-Gon Jinn. Qui-Gon Jinn's regular is $450, foil's $375, hyper's $470, hyper foils $537, prestige $571, prestige foil $650. The trend remains the same. 4 of the 6 are within $1. There really is no difference, but I do want to emphasize here that without this card being ultra desired, like the prestige tier 2 Darth Vader, the prestige foil here is barely worth more than the prestige. And it's, in theory, twice as hard to get in a $25 pack. Now here's the numbers for Yoda. Regular 11, foil 10, hyper 14, hyper foil 14, prestige 16, prestige foil 16. This is just the prime example of why I believe Carbonites have failed so much, in my opinion. Not only did Carbonites just destroy the value of the regular set, they didn't even add that much value with their exclusive variants. One of the funniest things that I heard recently was like, people are like, in Magic, there's so many versions of one card. And it's like, that's true. but it took them months and sets and years and decades to get there. Every set, we release a card with 7 versions. And oftentimes it's more, because there's 2 more in the weekly play for some of these cards. There's a couple more for the convention versions. There's a showdown version. Like, it's crazy to me that the decision at the top was, we're going to make a smaller game with a dedicated collector fan base like Star Wars. Let's start the game with 4 versions of the same card and then expand it to 7 versions or more. It's, again, a fundamental misunderstanding of what makes a good TCG product. After all that yelling into the mic, what can we do to fix the next set? Now, I've already made an entire video discussing this. It's called 5 Unforced Errors FFG has made and how to fix them. And it talks about all the needed product changes. Now, in the interest of your time, I just want to reiterate a few things exclusive to Carbonites that I want to see. Things like better showcases or removing regulars and foil cards and other things mentioned in that video are very important, and I would like to see them, but those are generally set-wide issues rather than just for Carbonites. So, for Carbonites, what do I want to see in the next set? Number 1. The prestige treatment needs to remain top tier. This is your flagship product that you are charging a premium for. Regular alt arts in other games and regular MSRP boxes have a lot more thought and effort and creativity put into them, even when compared to the Jump to Lightspeed ships, let alone the cards in this set. The prestige cards need to be top tier. And I don't mean just better than what Star Wars has done. I mean, they need to be brought up a whole nother level. Number 2, cut the thematic idea. Thematic prestige cards are a recipe for disaster. As long as they continue to do it, it will be a fundamental problem with the current pack setup. Now, it would be less problematic if it wasn't tied to the fact that they committed 1 prestige card per back, which by nature automatically makes prestige tier 1s far too common. But these are mistakes in the system that FFG has decided to set up themselves. If they decide to add more variants, like I wish that they would, maybe they can scale back on the prestige cards per pack, right? Because you're getting other cool treatments as well. And then that will also help that. And then that should also help the prestiges as well. You know, art is subjective. This right here is just a fundamental flaw in the setup of the product. The third thing that they can change, additional variants. There should be way more fun things to hit. The organized play cards should not get exclusive treatments until Carbonite boxes get more. Remember, Magic Collector boxes have way more than just 1 exclusive thing. Once you can add more variants into the Carbonite boxes, there are other things that you can do, but you need to add more goodies first. Now, I did just say that having 9 versions of the same card is too much. I hope that the additional variants are tied into reducing the amount of other versions that nobody cares about, like foils especially. So please understand, in an ideal world, we're changing both of those things. But if we can't change both, having additional variants that are still kind of hard to get would really make Carbonite boxes what they're supposed to be. And lastly, they need to lower the supply even more. Now, many people, I've seen this statistic floated in many Discords and Facebooks, just like I've seen many wrong things floated, but people are saying that they reduced the overall supply of Carbonites by 30%. Maybe that's true. I do think that they lowered the supply, but it doesn't matter if you lower supply by 30% if demand also was lowered by 30%. And I think it's very clear that there really is no meaningful feeling or difference between this set and the last set. Now, this might change in 2 weeks if suddenly the Carbonite boxes start drying up, everything starts going up like they're supposed to, and we get the upwards tick that we never got in Jump to Lightspeed. I'm more than happy to give them props if that happens in 2 weeks. But right now, for the next set, they need to continue to lower the supply of their Carbonite boxes. One thing I mentioned in the last product review I was very worried about was when Jump to Lightspeed was really hyped early on, before the official release or during the first couple of days, that is around the time where they're making a decision on how many set 6 Carbonite boxes they need to print. This is the exact same problem that happened for set 3, and why set 3 was extremely overprinted. It was because they saw all the hype in set 1. They thought that hype would continue, the game would grow, more people would come in. Oh, by the way, it didn't. Now we have 1 billion boxes and your boxes are worth nothing, okay? I'm really worried that they're going to actually increase the supply for the next set. So please be worried about that. Now, again, there are so many more things. I really do hope if you haven't checked out my 5 unforced error video to please check that one out. But we have now come to the end. What grade am I giving this product? If you watched my last one for Jump to Lightspeed, I gave it a B-. And I regret that. I think with more time and more distance away from Twilight, I probably would have given it a C-, but at the time, that felt right to me. Now, one set later, we know what prestige cards are like. We know the demand for them. We know what Carbonites have done to the overall value of the game. I am going to give Legends of the Force Carbonite boxes a D-. But honestly, I didn't even want to write a grade here. I don't think the grade matters. What matters is what I said in the review, okay? The Carbonites are flat out worse than the last set. The prestige cards are not only a step back visually, but time has proven that they aren't even worth that much more than the original variants in comparison to the huge price increase. Fundamental issues mentioned in the last product review and in my YouTube videos still exist. And I want to say FFG, as a company, they have a lot of experience designing games. That's what they're best at. The game is fun. They are great at developing games. But they spent all their time creating LCGs, these living card games with non-randomized products. And I truly believe that they lack a lot of experience in designing a good TCG product. Many of their decisions reek of corporate C-suites telling them to copy other products without understanding what makes those work. And I know there will be many who find this statement harsh. They will say, Star Wars still sells a lot. The game is great. My local scene is great. How can you say that it's a bad product? Well, this is a TCG. It's a game, but it's also an experience. Having a good product matters a lot. It's not enough to just have a good game. FFG has already proven this time and time again with their living card games. And you know what the craziest thing is that I am holding back a lot of my words because I do understand this is real life. There are real lags to developing products. When they decided on the contents for this set, Jump to Lightspeed wasn't released, right? But for next set, for set 6, they will not have this excuse. They will have seen what Jump to Lightspeed has done to the market. They will have seen the feedback from me and from a lot of other people about their product. They will be tested on whether or not they actually listen to the community. They will be tested on whether or not they know how to make a good product. So we will have to see until the next set. Thank you so much for watching, everyone. I'm trying a new thing where I actually scripted out the entire video and then added the PowerPoint afterwards. Please, please, please let me know what your thoughts are. I feel like I just screamed into the mic for an hour. Now, I don't make a lot of videos, right? I don't really consider myself a content creator. I'm really just a ranter, but it would really help me out if you subscribe to the channel. You know, given the amount of views that I get on some of these videos, I'm really trying to get to 1,000 subscribers. That would really, really help me out. Personal milestone of mine. So if you've made it this far, hashtag Babu Frick. Let me know in the comments and hopefully subscribe. All right. My guess is we're going to do a follow-up video in a month's time. So until then, I'll see you in another unboxing, hopefully. Thank you so much for watching and have a good day. Bye.